So, dear students, dear friends, you can see a very interesting topic written on the board today, that is projectile motion. This is a very common topic, and everybody who is entering into 11th after a month or so, after 2 months, is studying this topic. Now, basically, this is also a part of kinematics, but with a difference. Like in the first part of kinematics, you thought of only a straight line motion, like either like this or like this. If you combine these two axes, vertical and horizontal, then what you get is a plane. So all of us should understand what a plane is. Like plane is like a surface on which, if you like draw, for example, if you join 2 points, then that line will lie on that surface. Understand? For example, sphere is not a plane. If you join 2 points on a sphere, they will cut the sphere but not lie on the sphere. But if you draw this line is lying on the plane of this board. We say this line, y-axis, is lying on the plane of the board. X-axis is lying in the plane of the board. Now you can see an interesting figure, like something has been thrown like this. And this, what is thrown, is known as a projectile. So anything that you throw in space is a projectile. Projectile is looks like a big word, but it comes from the word projection. Projectile, something which has been projected into the space, like in any condition whatsoever. But when we study projectile motion, then we assume certain things, certain important things. Like assumptions are, first, g is constant. G means, you already know, g is acceleration due to gravity. So we take g as constant. We say g is equal to 10 meters per second square or 9.8 meters per second square. Now your question obviously would be, is g variable? Kya g वैसे variable होता है? Yes, my answer is it's variable, but it changes very slowly. For example, if it is something here, then after 50 kilometers it will change into something 50, 100, 200. So like for Earth, for the planet Earth, even 1 kilometer is a big distance. So in 1 kilometer distance, g does not change. So we take g as constant. Secondly, there is no air resistance. No air resistance. So actually it is not true. There is some amount of air resistance. For example, if you throw a ball, it is facing some resistance. Now, is this air resistance important? Yes, it is important, because for example, if you drop a paper, let us say if you throw a paper, then air resistance is very important. If there is fast wind, there is tornado, there is something like a tufan, tornado, then you know that like even heavy vehicles, they are flying off in the air. So if something is going in space and air is also there, then the dynamics, that is the situation, becomes more complex. But for our purpose, we won't take any air resistance. So we will neglect air friction, you can say, either, or air resistance. We will treat g as constant. So with these two basic assumptions, now let us see what happens when we throw this object. So this object, whatever it is, let us say thrown from here, this is a projectile, and that is why the topic projectile motion. Now this figure mein you can see very easily that when you throw this, that this is the initial velocity. Initial means at this point of time. Prarambhik veg, starting velocity. So the particle follows some path like this, and you know this shape, the shape of the curve, आपको पता होगा बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स को, shape of the curve is you call as a parabola. So this is a very basic theory class, but very important, because when we forget these things, we are unable to solve questions. Many students say that like we understand the theory, but we are unable to solve problem. No, I'm sorry, I'm being harsh, but you don't understand the theory at all. You just mug it up. Mugging up is not understanding. Try to understand something. For example, when I say angle of projection, then understanding means you actually feel it. If I tell you the angle of projection of a projectile is 45 degree, you will write down in notebook 45 degree. So should I put it in some formula? Now remembering formula is not understanding physics. You should actually see that this is the angle of projection, and you can see that as it moves down, here there is another angle which it is making. So see, theta is the angle of projection, u is the initial velocity, and v is the velocity at any point. Any point means here, here. You can see that this velocity at this point is like this. So it's something like this. Velocity goes on changing like this, like this, like this, and then finally it strikes here, and it strikes here, and its velocity is like this. You can say this is the final velocity. This is the final velocity. Now you can see that this angle was theta, but as it goes up and up and up and up, then this angle is alpha. Now this is not the angle of projection, remember. Angle of projection is theta, but this alpha is the angle made by velocity v, this velocity with the horizontal. So it gets reduced to this, and then you can see. Now what is alpha here? अब यहीं से आपके प्रॉब्लम्स की शुरुआत हो जाती है. What is alpha at this point? Many students may not be figure out, sir, alpha at this point. I mean to say, this velocity is making what angle with this x-axis? The answer is 0. Now this is common sense. So in physics, if we lack common sense, howsoever long books we may read, many students ask, sir, which is the best book? Many books are best, but like this angle which it makes with the horizontal is 0 at the topmost point. Vt means the velocity at the topmost point. Now another important thing is, like this kind of planar motion or two-dimensional motion as we call it can be easily understood if we know how to break velocity or displacement into its components. So आप नॉर्मली क्या लिखते हो? आप याद कीजिए, आप लिखते हो s इज इक्वल टू यू टी प्लस हाफ ए टी स्क्वायर. वो यहाँ पर नहीं चलेगा. क्यों नहीं चलेगा? क्योंकि यहाँ वाई भी और एक्स भी. कौन सा s? ये वाला s या ये वाला s? तो देखिए, अगर ये वाला मैं लेता हूँ s, तो इसको मैं बोल देता हूँ sx, मतलब डिस्प्लेसमेंट इस डायरेक्शन. तो आप सोचोगे इस डायरेक्शन में कहाँ जा रहा है? नहीं जा रहा है, बट when it goes from here, let us say I call it as point O and this as point P, you can see that if you draw a straight line here, then this is a horizontal distance, this is the vertical height. So ये वाले डिस्प्लेसमेंट में, इन दिस डिस्प्लेसमेंट, आपका जो डिस्प्लेसमेंट हुआ है, इसमें दो डिस्प्लेसमेंट छुपे, एक एक्स एक्सिस के अलोंग और एक वाई एक्सिस के अलोंग. तो इसको हम बोल रहे हैं एस एक्स और इसको हम बोल दे रहे हैं एस वाई. मतलब दिस इज एस वाई एंड दिस इज एस एक्स. तो आप एस एक्स को अलग से स्टडी कर सकते हो, दिस इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग, और एस वाई को अलग से स्टडी कर सकते हो. मिक्स करने की जरूरत नहीं है. एंड दिस इज द बेसिक ऑफ प्रोजेक्टाइल मोशन. इसको कहीं लिख लीजिए नोट करके आप अपनी नोटबुक में, क्योंकि ये पॉइंट्स बुक में ऐसे हाईलाइट नहीं होंगे, बट इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है दैट यू कैन स्टडी एस एक्स एस वाई सेपरेटली. देयर इज नो इंटरमिक्सिंग. ये दोनों डायरेक्शंस आपस में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट क्रिएट नहीं करती. इस डायरेक्शन में जो हो रहा है वो इंडिपेंडेंट है whatever is happening in this direction. So these two motions x and y, they are independent. There is no correlation between them. तो देखिए, जब मैं एस वाई लिखूंगा यहाँ पे, आप लिखते थे s इज इक्वल टू यू टी प्लस हाफ ए टी स्क्वायर. तो आप सोचोगे सर अब u को हम क्या लिखें? आपने s को तो एस वाई लिख दिया. तो जब मैंने s को एस वाई लिख दिया तो हम u को भी क्या लिख देंगे? यू वाई टी प्लस हाफ ए वाई टी स्क्वायर. आपकी पूरी थ्योरी अगर आज क्लियर हो गई तो आप सारे प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर सकते हो. बिलीव मी, ट्रस्ट मी. उसके बाद एस एक्स को क्या लिखेंगे हम? ये वाले. अब यहाँ यू वाई मत लिखिएगा क्योंकि एक्स में आ गए. तो यू एक्स टी प्लस हाफ ए एक्स टी स्क्वायर. ये मैंने सेकेंड इक्वेशन ऑफ मोशन लिखी है. फर्स्ट वाली अभी लिखता हूं मैं. v इज इक्वल टू यू प्लस ए टी अभी नहीं लिखी है. नो, आपका क्वेश्चन होगा सर एस वाई तो समझ में आया, तो यू वाई क्या है? तो जब हम चैप्टर ऑन वेक्टर्स पढ़े हैं तो हमने ये देखा है कि कोई भी वेलोसिटी जो इसके दो कंपोनेंट्स होते हैं, मतलब कंपोनेंट मींस इफेक्ट. तो इस u का एक इफेक्ट इधर आता है जिसको हम ux बोलते हैं. इस u का एक इफेक्ट इधर आता है जिसको हम uy बोलते हैं. तो uy इज द वेलोसिटी इन दिस डायरेक्शन, मतलब ये आपकी uy कहलाती है, और इस डायरेक्शन में जो वेलोसिटी होती है वो ux कहलाती है. Now my question would obviously be, sir, there are no two velocities, I got one velocity. ऐसे डाउट्स हमारे दिमाग में आने भी चाहिए जब आप पढ़ रहे हो. So raise as many doubts as possible, because you don't raise doubts, you never learn. Now your question should be, sir, if this is u, what is ux? तो देखिए ये जो ट्राइंगल हम जब बना लेते हैं, ऐसे एक राइट ट्राइंगल बनेगा, तो यू एक्स यू वाई और यू रिलेटेड होते हैं. कैसे? अगर आप इसको ऐसे ड्रॉ कर देते हो, तो यू वाई इज दिस और दिस. तो देखिए ये एक ट्राइंगल, मैं इसमें आई एम नॉट पुटिंग पेन, बट दिस ट्राइंगल इज अ राइट ट्राइंगल. तो इसमें यू वाई अपॉन यू थोड़ा ट्रिग्नोमेट्री लगानी पड़ेगी. सो ऑल दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. पीपल हु आर वीक इन ज्योमेट्री, calculation, trigonometry and latest algebra and calculus cannot learn physics. Remember, I am repeating it. So this is trigonometry, and using trigonometry sx मैंने उधर लिख दिया, ऐसा हटा देता हूँ. देखिए मैं क्या लिखूंगा, ux मतलब velocity in this direction is u into cos theta and uy is equal to u into sin theta. That is writing the components in physics. This will happen again and again and again. 1000 times, 1 lakh times this process. Ux is u cos theta, uy is u sin theta. So when you use this equation, then you put u sin theta here and u cos theta here. All these tools and tips are going to be helpful in solving your problems. Now the next question is, what is ay and ax? You will say, sir, ठीक है, आपने ये तो बता दिया, मेरी समझ में. अब आप देखिए, मैंने यहां से कहा था देयर इज नो एयर रेजिस्टेंस. जब आप ऐसे चल रहे हो, अगर कोई एयर नहीं है, तो क्या आपके ऊपर कोई फोर्स लगेगी? आई एम वॉकिंग लाइक दिस, इज देयर एनी फोर्स ऑन मी? और आई एम वॉकिंग लाइक दिस, इज देयर एनी फोर्स ऑन मी? नो. You will say yes, there is force, but that force is because of air. If there is no air, is there any force? No. Without force, can there be any acceleration? No, sir. Okay, right, you are correct. So without force, there cannot be any acceleration. That is, in this direction, there is no acceleration. Ax is equal to 0. अब ये इतनी important बात है that I would like to tell itself this 100 times, but you will get bored. आप सोचोगे कि this fellow has gone mad. But if I want to repeat it, I would like to say ax is equal to 0, ax is equal to 0. So 100 times I will repeat it, but you will ask me, why is it so important? This is important because when acceleration in this direction is 0, just see what happens here. If acceleration is 0, then what happens? You will start thinking what happens. This is the connecting point. When acceleration is 0, then velocity is constant. Acceleration की definition क्या होती है आपकी? The rate of change of velocity. But जब ये acceleration ही आपका 0 हो गया, तो क्या velocity constant नहीं हो जाएगी? आप कहोगे हो जाएगी, मैं कहूँगा नहीं हो जाएगी. Sir, you are confusing us. See, यहाँ पे ax 0 है, मैंने ay की बात नहीं करी अभी ay की बात भी करेंगे. So ay is equal to minus g. No sir, why minus g? Because I told you that anything which is dropped like this, thrown like this, उसका acceleration downward होता है. Didn't I tell you? It's vertically downward direction. So minus sign is a must. So I didn't say a is 0. I said ax was 0 and ay is minus g. So velocity in x direction is constant. I'm repeating it, and this also I would like to repeat in 100 times, but you will say I am gone mad. So you understand please that velocity in x direction is constant. So we will say this is, I should specially write it because this comes again and again and you fail it. Velocity in x direction is constant. और आप पूछते हैं कि कौन सी बुक है? यही बुक है जो मैं आपको पढ़ा रहा हूँ, इससे बड़ी कोई बुक नहीं हो सकती है. इस वीडियो को आप 1000 बार देखो, आपको समझ में आ जाएगा. मैंने क्या लिखा? वेलोसिटी इन एक्स डायरेक्शन इज कांस्टेंट. इसका मतलब इस डायरेक्शन में वेलोसिटी चेंज नहीं हो रही है.